Hello, it's Matt again, and in this video we're going to be talking about compressors. Just like the gates, to get there, we're going to hit the select button, bring up our channel strip, select compressors, and there we are. Now right off the bat, you're going to notice that a lot of the controls look very similar, but in this function, they're going to actually do many different things. What a compressor is exactly what it sounds like. It compresses the overall volume of that specific channel depending on your parameters. So we can start with the threshold and we can start to bring it down. So let's say it's getting too loud at around negative 24 decibels for whatever reason. And it's starting to actually do some compressing. The threshold doesn't mean anything unless we adjust the ratio. At a ratio of 1 to 1, that's saying every time the volume increases by 1 decibel, I'm going to let you through at 1 decibel. Obviously that's not doing anything. So if I increase it to 4 to 1, when the channel volume goes 4 decibels up, it's only going to let it go through at 1 decibel. So if I have 8 decibels of volume, it's only going to let it go through at 2 decibels on the output. So snare sounds okay at 4 to 1, so I'm going to leave it at that. The attack is similar to the gate in that it determines how quickly the compressor starts after the threshold is reached. This is used creatively because you can let more or less attack come through from the snare or whatever instrument it is at a time. So on a snare, I want that crack to come through, then I want it to depress everything else so that everything else in the mix can be heard. But I only want that crack to be heard in the mix. So if I turn it on and I bring that attack down, we're going to hear that the snare sounds a lot duller. It sounds just like it's being compressed without any creative measure. So if I bring that attack out, I'm starting to let that crack come through. You can hear it more intense, more intense. And at this rate right here, I guess somewhere around 7 milliseconds, I'm letting through a lot of that initial percussion while getting rid of a lot of that ring so that everything else in the mix can come through. Next we have release. What release is how quickly the compressor is releasing as that threshold is no longer reached. So a long release time is saying that the compression is going to happen for longer. Particularly in a snare, it's not going to matter that much how long it is, as long as it's happening for at least the length of the snare hit and the ring. It's going to be a little bit more important on a bass or guitar or vocal. The knee right next to the release is actually going to determine the severity of how fast the compressor happens after the attack is met. So on a percussive instrument like a drum or a kick, I'm going to want the knee to be pretty hard and less soft because I want it to be dramatic. In the terms of a vocal, I'm going to want it to be softer so I can make the compressor a little bit more invisible and a lot more natural sounding. After the knee we have the makeup gain. It's often forgotten because it's usually further down in the signal chain and not often seen. Makeup gain is important because when we're compressing something, the definition of compressing something is reducing the overall volume, but we still want a similar output. So if we're compressing something at a 4 to 1 or something more dramatic like an 8 to 1, we're probably going to have around 5 to 8 decibels of overall volume loss. So we're going to want to make up for that by gaining it up a few decibels over here until it audibly sounds similar to the input. And on this particular board, we have a dry and wet mix knob. At 100% wet, that means it is 100% compressed, and at 100% dry or 0% wet means the compressor is not doing anything at all. So for some things, in order to get a sound to taste, like an acoustic guitar, we might only want a 50-50. But in this case, for the drums, we're going to want it 100% wet. That's all I'm going to show you on compressors. Thank you for listening and happy mixing.